Okay, so good morning, students. Let me welcome you all for this third session on revisiting the fundamental aspects of electronics. So today's topic will be on BJTs. The first session focused on the fundamental aspects of the semiconductors. In the second session, we discussed about the construction and the characteristics of a PN junction diode. So today we'll be discussing briefly about bipolar junction transistors. So the term transistor itself says transfer of resistance from one region to the another region. Well, there are many flavors in the transistors. The first transistor that was actually invented, it was way back in the year 1947. Okay, so just to brief you about the history of the transistor, three people were involved. The slide shows that it was Dr. Shockley, Dr. Bardeen and Dr. Brattain, okay, who were involved in the invention of the first transistor. Please note that the first transistor was not a silicon one, it was a germanium based transistor, because at that point of time silicon technology was not that much matured. Okay, so people just knew how to invent, okay, how to work on a germanium transistor. It was only later on that people found that and they developed the silicon technology to a much greater extent. Okay, so nowadays most of the transistors are all silicon based. Okay, all right. So this diagram shows the very first transistor which was fabricated by Shockley's team. It was way back in the year 1947. Now as I already mentioned, there are many flavors in a transistor. The traditional ones are bipolar junction transistors and the recent ones are MOSFETs. Okay, well, the various flavors in the transistors are BJTs, FETs, that is JFETs, and MOSFETs, and also MESFETs. Okay, so these are all different types of transistors, but the basic one and the traditional one is a bipolar junction transistor. So let us try to understand today the basic aspects of a bipolar junction transistor. Okay, so to start with, BJT is a three-terminal device. The three terminals are emitter, base and the collector. So this is how the three-layered structure of a bipolar junction transistor looks like. The definition says that a transistor is nothing but two diodes which are connected back to back. Okay, so if you just go through some of the textbooks, there will be a definition like a transistor is nothing but simply two diodes which are connected back to back. When we try to understand that, we'll get to know that yes, indeed there are two diodes which are connected back to back. So this diagram represents those two diodes. Say for example, PN is one diode and NP is another diode. So they are connected back to back. So overall, a transistor is a three-layered structure. The three layers are emitter, base and the collector. Okay, they are the three terminals. In a BJT there are two flavors. One is NPN and the second one is PNP. In the case of NPN transistor, P region is sandwiched between two N regions. In the case of PNP, N region is sandwiched between two P regions. So this diagram shows that one N region, which is the blue colored region, is sandwiched between two P regions, and it is observed that the thickness of the base region is usually very small when compared to the thickness of the emitter region and the collector region. Okay, for some very valid reasons, we'll be discussing it later. One more point is regarding the doping. The doping of the base region, which is this central part, is also less when compared to the emitter as well as the collector part. That means emitter region is large and it is also highly doped, in the same way collector region is also large and is heavily doped when compared to the base region. Okay, so moving forward, the commercial available BJTs are as indicated. Okay, so these are some few examples of the commercially available transistors, how they look like. Okay, and these are the different configurations. So you can just observe that the three terminals of a transistor are emitter, base and the collector. Okay, in our lab also we have traditional BJTs which has three terminals. Now how to identify the terminals in the case of a BJT? Well, this is how the BJT which is available in our lab also looks like. Okay, basically it's a shiny silvery colored structure with three terminals. Just hold it upright and you will observe that there is a notch present. Okay, so can you observe this pointer? This pointer points to a notch. Okay, so hold this upright and start counting in a clockwise direction. So the first terminal will be emitter, second one will be base and the third one will be collector. So it's like E, B, C. Okay, next, the construction of a transistor. Well, the definition says transistor is nothing but two diodes which are connected back to back. Alright, now what about the condition of the two diodes? Will both the diodes be forward biased? Will both the diodes be reverse biased? Or will one diode be forward biased and another diode be reverse biased? So it all depends. Under normal circumstances we say that in a transistor one PN junction is reverse biased whereas the other one is forward biased. Now which one is reverse biased and which one is forward biased? Let us try to discuss on it. So the first diagram, okay, let us try to spend 5 minutes of time on these diagrams. Okay, yes, so this gray colored region is the emitter, blue colored region is the base, the collector region is left out. Okay, so we are just considering only these two regions which has one junction in between. So that is emitter to base junction. Okay, which means there is a junction between emitter and the base and we are applying a voltage, and the voltage is such that due to this applied polarity the diode in this particular transistor gets forward biased. And we have seen that in a diode whenever it gets forward biased there will be current flowing due to the majority carriers. So it is very clearly mentioned here. When there are positive charges being supplied by the battery, holes are the majority carriers, so there will be repulsion. So the repulsive force forces the majority carriers to move from one region to the another region, which means holes which are the majority carriers in the P region will enter into the N region. Now a very important point is when holes from the P region enter into the N region they become minority carriers, because in the N region electrons which were previously present they are the majority carriers. Now some holes have entered into the N region, into the base region from emitter side which is of P type. Okay, fine. So in the base region some minority carriers have entered from the emitter. Okay, so now as usual the circuit gets completed. Okay, so this is the scenario of forward bias. Let us concentrate on the reverse bias case. In the reverse bias case we are forgetting about the emitter side, we are only concentrating on base and the collector side. So for the diode to get reverse biased, N region should be connected to the positive terminal of the battery. So that's the N region, base is the N region, it should be connected to the positive terminal. P region has to be connected to the negative terminal of the battery. Okay, so this is what is the reverse bias case. Now under the diode operation we have seen that whenever the diode is reverse biased the width of the depletion region increases, which is what is denoted by this black colored thing. Okay, so you can very clearly observe that in this case the width of the depletion region is large. So in this case what happens, the majority carriers can never flow from one region to the other region. That means electrons in the base can never enter into the p region, and holes from p region can never cross the junction and enter into the n region. It is only the minority carriers that can flow. Okay, in base which is of n type, holes are the minority carriers, so only those holes can move. Similarly, in p region of the collector, electrons are the minority carriers, only they can move. So overall it constitutes a minority carrier current. Okay, so just to summarize very quickly, in a transistor, when one junction is forward biased, majority carrier current flows, and in the other case, when the other junction is reverse biased, it is only the minority carrier flow that is flowing. Now can we combine these two scenarios? Because we say a transistor is nothing but two diodes that are connected back to back. So let's try to combine these two scenarios and then try to understand it. Okay, what is happening? Yes, so when we combine, this is what happens. Okay, all right. So the first junction, which is emitter to base junction, we are applying a forward bias. So due to this forward bias, a current flows. Okay, because PN junction is forward biased, and the current that flows is emitter current. Okay, since the current is through the emitter, we call it as emitter current. So emitter current flows, and which means holes enter into the base region from the emitter region. Okay, because holes are the majority carriers in the emitter and they enter into the base region. Now in the base region, electrons are the majority carriers. However, some holes have entered into the base region from the emitter. Now there will be two options for these holes. Okay, the first option is either they can just take this path and then complete the circuit, which means the holes can just move from positive to negative end of the battery, or they can move from base into the collector region. A very very important point, okay, to be understood. Right, now you can understand why will the holes which are the minority carriers in the base region move into the collector region when this junction is reverse biased. Well, they will move. Why? Because they are minority carriers and they are not affected by the potential wall or the depletion wall. Okay, so it is for this reason that we consider one junction to be forward biased and another junction to be reverse biased. Okay, so just to summarize again, holes from the emitter which are the majority carriers enter into the base region. Once they enter, they become minority carriers. The holes entered into the base region have two options. Either they can move like this or they can move into the collector. It is quite natural that the holes will move or they will take the horizontal direction. Okay, that is, say for example, if there are 100 holes in the base region, hardly one or two holes will complete the path like this and will contribute to the base current, whereas rest 98 approximately will cross or will enter the collector region from the base region. Okay, so the movement is always like this, and please understand these are minority carriers. Okay, so till here it is majority carrier current and here it is minority carrier current. So there is a transfer of resistance from one region to the other region, thereby contributing to the amplification action. Okay, so do you understand? So you will have to apply the physics here. Majority carriers get converted to minority carriers when they enter into the base region, and when they again move from base to the collector current, they contribute or they constitute to the minority carrier current. So in this course there is always a transfer of resistance from low resistance to a higher resistance, because in forward bias case the resistance is low because there will be a current flowing. In the reverse bias case there will be a very high resistance, so that the current is very small. No majority carriers flow, only the minority carriers flow. Okay, so you will have to apply these concepts and then think collectively. Alright, now can I apply Kirchhoff's current law? Yes, any device you can apply Kirchhoff's current law. So can I apply KCL here? Yes. Three currents flow in a transistor because it's a three terminal device. Well, this is the emitter current. Emitter current is the current that is flowing inside the device, and base current and the collector current, they are the currents that are flowing outside the device. Okay, so then at a particular node, currents entering a node should be equal to currents leaving the node as per Kirchhoff's current law. So if I consider base to be that point, then it is IE equal to IB plus IC. Currents entering, I is the current entering, should be equal to the summation of currents that are leaving. So base current is leaving and collector current is also leaving. Okay, so that is in a very simplistic way expressed like IE equal to IC plus IB. Now please understand that this expression holds good for PNP as well as NPN transistor in all configurations. In all the configurations, this basic expression has to hold good, should be valid. Okay, now another important point is, what all are the constituent currents in this collector current itself? Okay, because if you again very deeply understand or try to think, you will see that the collector current is not only due to the flow of the minority carriers from base to the collector current which had entered from the emitter side. See, base region is of N type, and in N region holes are the minority carriers. So it is quite true that there were some holes present well before some more holes entered from the emitter side. So if you want to distinguish them, it is like this: IC equal to IC majority plus ICO minority. Okay, so what does that mean? IC majority is the collector current due to the holes which were present as majority carriers in the base region, and when the reverse bias voltage is being applied, they will be moving into the collector side. Okay, so that is IC majority, and ICO minority is keeping the emitter open. O stands for emitter open, keeping the emitter open and applying the reverse bias to the base to collector junction. What is the minority carrier flow? So that is ICO minority. Clear? Okay, so that's the summation. The collector current is summation of IC majority plus ICO minority. Okay, fine. So all these aspects you would have studied in your basic electronics. Maybe it will be just a useful revision session for you, I believe. Okay. All right. So you had also studied something about BJT configurations. Well, a BJT has three configurations. One is common base, the second one common emitter, and the third one common collector. So let's concentrate on the common base configuration. As the name indicates, common base configuration means base is common with respect to other two terminals, which are emitter and collector. That means in common base configuration, base terminal is common with respect to emitter and the collector. Okay, right. So that's the symbolic representation. So that's the symbolic representation. Again, you can see that emitter current is equal to base current and the collector current. Now the blue colored shaded region includes the symbol of a BJT which is of PNP type. Now how can you differentiate between a PNP and a NPN transistor? By the arrow. If the arrow is inside, okay, that's a PNP transistor. If it is outside, if it is pointing outside with respect to the emitter, then it is NPN transistor. So when you just compare, you can see that in a PNP transistor the arrow is always pointing inside at the emitter terminal. In a NPN transistor it is always pointing outside. Okay, fine. Alright, so the base configuration looks like this. The first one is common base configuration using PNP transistor, and the second one is common base configuration using NPN transistor. The construction is same, the circuit is same, only difference is that you are applying a different polarity voltages for PNP as well as NPN. Okay, if for PNP emitter to base, if you are applying a positive voltage, here it is just the opposite, right? Okay, because at the end base to emitter junction has to be forward biased. Okay, and the base to collector has to be reverse biased. So that should be the main objective. So regarding the common base configuration, how does it behave? That means what is the behavior of the input graph? What is the behavior of the output characteristics? Okay, well, input characteristics for a common base silicon transistor amplifier. Okay, this is the graph. In short, common base configuration is also called CB. Okay, CB stands for common base. Since the base current is extremely small, I can equate collector current to be almost equal to that of emitter current. IC is almost equal to IE. Since the transistor is of silicon, obviously the forward bias voltage, the knee voltage, the voltage between base and emitter should be 0.7. Okay, it is only after this 0.7 that the diode will be forward biased. Now if I take the ratio of collector to emitter current, then it is IC upon IE, which is equal to alpha DC. Well, alpha DC is the DC amplification factor in common base configuration. There are two amplification factors, one is DC as well as AC for every configuration. Okay, if the voltages are fixed, then it is called DC amplification factor. If the voltages are varying, if the currents are varying, then it is called AC amplification factor. Normally the magnitude of IC is almost equal to IE, although it is slightly lesser. So it is quite obvious that the magnitude of alpha DC is either 1 or lesser than 1. Okay, slightly lesser than 1. So its usual range will be from 0.9 to 1. Okay. Alright, so now why is that this graph appears to be similar to that of a diode forward characteristics? Why? Because emitter to base junction is forward biased and it is a graph of input current versus input voltage. Please remember, input characteristics is always a graph of input current versus input voltage at fixed values of output voltage. So VCB is the output voltage now. Okay, so there are three different output voltage levels. For all the three levels we are getting different current magnitudes, different emitter current magnitudes. Okay, so higher is the VCB, higher will be your emitter current. Okay, so just to summarize, in the active region, okay, so we will be discussing about these three things. Let me go to the next slide. Regarding the output characteristics, output graph is always for IC versus VCB, I mean output current versus output voltage at fixed values of input current. So for common base configuration, IE is the input current. So you can observe that for different input current values, different output current values are obtained. Initially the current increases suddenly and then it will remain constant. Okay, fine. So this region is called saturation region. The below gray portion is called cutoff region, and this entire region is called active region. Clear? Okay, so all these things you would have studied in the basic electronics. I will not be going into the details of it, but just to emphasize on the different regions, we have three regions. One is active, second one cutoff, and the third one is saturation. In the active region, base to emitter is forward biased, whereas collector to base is reverse biased. In the cutoff region, base to emitter and collector to base junctions both are reverse biased. In saturation, both of them are forward biased. Okay. For us, in a transistor, the active region is very important. So one junction is forward biased and the other junction is reverse biased. Next, coming to common emitter. As the name indicates, again emitter terminal is made common with respect to base and the collector. Okay, so we are applying or we are giving the supply to the base terminal, due to which base current flows, and similarly another supply is being given to the collector to emitter junction. Again here also base to emitter junction is made forward biased, collector to emitter junction is made reverse biased. Okay, so this one is for NPN and this circuit is for PNP. Again you can observe that the changes the directions of the current, okay, the conventions and the directions of the current and the voltage polarities, right? All right, so the slide is self-explanatory. Let us proceed further. The graph. Okay, so again it's for the output characteristics. It is graph of output current versus output voltage. In this case, the output current is IC, output voltage is VCE, and the input current is base current. Please understand, for common base configuration, for output characteristics, the input current was emitter current, whereas here for common emitter configurations, output characteristics, the input current is base current. Okay, so just concentrate on the magnitudes. So as the base current increases, so does your collector current also increase. So initially there will be a sudden rise and then it will appear to be constant. Although there is a small linear rise in common emitter case, which is not observed in the common base. In the common base, there is a perfect flat current observed in the active region, whereas here there is a small linearity observed. Okay, fine. Now what about the amplification factor? Beta DC is the ratio of IC upon IB. Now the magnitude of IB is in microamps or nanoamps. The magnitude of IC is in milliamps. Then what should be the magnitude of beta DC? Well, it is quite evident that beta DC should be very large, very huge. Okay, where practically it ranges from 50 to somewhere around 400, 500 also. Okay, so there is a large variation in beta. It is pretty huge. So similarly, this is the input graph. Input graph is always input current versus input voltage at fixed values of output voltages. All right, so we saw two amplification factors in two different configurations: alpha DC in common base, beta DC in common emitter. Is there any link between those two? Yes, there is a link, because three currents are involved: emitter current, base current and the collector current, okay, which are interrelated. Then obviously there must be some relation between alpha DC and beta DC. Let us look at it. Okay, you can express collector current as beta into IB, right? Okay, so base current is always, IC is always beta multiplied by IB. IE can be expressed as IC plus IB. IC is beta IB. So if you just simplify, IE equal to beta plus 1 IB. Now if you substitute, you will finally arrive at an expression like alpha equal to beta upon beta plus 1, or beta equal to alpha upon 1 minus alpha. Okay, so that's a very important relation which will help you to design various parameters. with respect to amplifier circuits. Okay. The last one, common collector. Okay, we'll quickly go through it. So here collector is common with respect to base and the emitter. Again, these are the current notations symbolically and also configuration wise. Now a very important point to be discussed here is, let me just go back to the previous slide regarding the configurations. Yes, so we looked at these three configurations with respect to BJT. Now the point comes, for designing amplifier circuits, which configuration should I use? Well, the answer is it all depends. What do we mean by that? Well, if you want to design a very nice voltage amplifier circuit, then probably you should go for a common emitter or a common base. If you want to design a very nice current amplifier circuit using a BJT, then probably you should go with a common emitter or common collector. So what does that mean? Common base configuration can be used or act as excellent voltage amplifiers, but very poor current amplification. Similarly, common collector, they are not so good voltage amplifiers, but they are very good current amplifiers. I repeat, common collector, good current amplifiers. Common base, good voltage amplifier. Then what about common emitter? Common emitter can be used in designing good voltage amplifiers and also good current amplifiers. Now we have an advantage. It is for this reason that common emitter is normally employed in designing most of the amplifier circuits. Even in the lab also, you will observe that most of the amplifier circuits, most of the oscillator circuits use BJT in common emitter configuration. Why? Because it can perform current amplification and voltage amplification faithfully. Okay, so moving next, DC biasing of BJTs. We had discussed a similar aspect with respect to diodes, where we had concentrated on the load line analysis, okay, which gives us the graph of the diode characteristics and a load line. The intersection would have given us the quiescent point. So similarly here also, if we take the output characteristics of a BJT and if we use the load line, then it intersects at various points, right? The same has been done here and various operating points have been taken up. Now can we identify which operating point is most feasible, is most desirable? Well, as a thumb rule, we usually say that point B is pretty much preferred as an operating point. Okay, and point A, point C and point D, they are not usually preferred. Why? Because if I select point A as operating point, then it is almost at the boundary level of cutoff as well as saturation region. Okay, so this cannot be used as a proper selective operating point. Then what about point C? Well, point C, it is somewhat in a safe range, but however it is still nearer to the saturation and to the cutoff region. What about point D? Point D is far away from saturation as well as cutoff, however it is close enough to the maximum power limitations, which is this region, PC max. So there will be a lot of leakage current here, okay, power issues. So point B is usually far from saturation, cutoff as well as the power limitations. So as a thumb rule, this point B is preferred operating point. Okay, it is the preferred position point. Alright, so moving next, again we have discussed on these aspects. linear region, cutoff region, saturation region. Okay, one junction will be forward biased, another one will be reverse biased, or both will be reversed, or both will be forward biased. So it all depends on which region we use for which application. Now finally, you have also studied about different biasing configurations in a BJT. Okay, some of them which you studied, I suppose, are fixed bias, emitter bias, voltage divider bias, collector feedback bias, emitter follower, and common base. Okay, now what do these mean? See, a BJT can be biased by using some passive elements, especially especially resistors in different combinations. Okay, so that the input current expression and the output voltage expressions can be determined by this particular way of configuring. Okay, so the simplest one is fixed bias configuration. I assume that you have studied all these configurations, but very quickly let me just show you how these configurations just look like. Okay, I have not included any expressions here because the main objective in all the configurations is to determine the input current expression and the output voltage expression, which is here, in this case, since it is common emitter mode, we are interested in finding out the expression for IB and VCE, the output voltage expression. Okay, so that's the most simplest one, fixed bias. Well, it has its own limitations. By the way, if there are two types of biasing, one is DC biasing and the second one is AC biasing. In your basic electronics, you must have studied only the DC biasing of BJTs. For DC biasing, what do we do? Well, where is the DC bias actually? Is it the input signal or is it this VCC? Well, it is this VCC. Okay, so for DC biasing of any devices, any configurations, the first step is ignore these capacitors because they have high input impedance and output impedance. So it's like 1 by infinity, which is equal to 0. So we usually detach the input signal and the output signal for DC biasing. What we are left with? We are only left with the core DC part, the BJT with the resistors and the DC supply VCC. Okay, so whenever the DC supply VCC is applied, in what way the fixed bias circuit behaves? Okay, so that based upon that behavior you can fix the Q point. Okay, that is the main objective. Alright, so that's the fixed bias configuration, which is not so stable. If you want to improvise the stability, you will have to add a resistor at the emitter. So when that is done, it is called as emitter bias configuration. Okay, the expression modifies a bit because there is an addition of this RE. So this actually slightly stabilizes the stability of the overall circuit. But a much better configuration exists, which is called voltage divider bias. Okay, so this is the most preferred one because it is the most stable one, stable configuration among all the configuration circuits. The next one is collector feedback, where there is a feedback from the collector. The other two configurations are emitter follower and the common base configuration. Well, it all depends on the application. Okay, which type of amplifier do you want to design? Is it really required as a current amplifier, voltage amplifier? So it all goes with the application that you use different configurations. But as a thumb rule, a voltage divider biasing circuit is normally employed. Okay, so finally the applications. Well, BJTs, they find their application more in moderate and high power amplifier circuits. Low power circuits, we normally don't use BJTs because nowadays we have much powerful low power efficient low power devices called as MOSFETs and JFETs. Okay, they consume very less power, there is less leakage current in those structures. So we normally don't use BJTs in low power applications, but still BJTs are used in most of the audio amplifiers, in transmitter section, receiver section. We use them in differential amplifiers to design operational amplifiers, op-amps, which you have already studied. We also use BJTs in some switching applications. We use them in oscillators also. Okay, so these are the general applications of BJTs. Alright, so that is the end of this BJT. Okay, so just to summarize what we did very quickly. BJT, okay, so it stands for bipolar junction transistor. Yes, I think I forgot one point to mention here. What does bipolar mean? Bipolar means the current flowing through a BJT or this particular transistor is due to electrons as well as holes. Okay, so the current flow is due to holes as well as electrons. So that is the meaning of bipolar, holes as well as electrons. Okay, once we start with our syllabus, once we study the JFETs, we will understand that there JFETs and MOSFETs, they are all unipolar device, which means the current is either due to holes or due to electrons, whereas in BJT it is due to holes as well as electrons. Okay, you should never forget this point. Alright, so we looked at the structure, its construction, operation, configurations, 3 configurations, then this DC biasing, different fixed bias, emitter bias, voltage divider, collector, and so on, and finally the applications. Alright, so I think we'll end the session here. Okay, so this was a quick revision on semiconductor fundamentals, diodes, as well as BJTs, which I felt was pretty much necessary for you in order to move forward and then start with the real analog electronic devices and circuits part. Okay, because there we will directly be starting with clippers, clampers, and then further we will directly start with the JFETs, okay, which are junction field effect transistors, right? So to start with those aspects, it was very important for you to just revise, re-understand these concepts so that you can just link the concepts very clearly. Okay, alright, so I hope this was a useful session for you. Thank you. In the next session I'll be discussing with the syllabus of AEDC course. Thank you.